right, so you know what? I don't think this lighting tutorial would be complete if we didn't bring up one unique light source that's pretty funky. Voila, the ring flash. This is the one modifier that doesn't have a modeling light. So we're gonna have to strobe it in order to see the effect. So all the other ones, we're using the modeling lights and shooting with the modeling light to show you the effect. This one, we're gonna strobe. All right, guys, so this is what we're doing. We got a ring flash situation going on here. I got the Pro Photo Acute Ring 2, you can see. Now, we don't have a modeling light on this one because it doesn't have that capability, but we are gonna strobe this. We do have different modifiers. We've got the silver one that's on it now. We've got the white one, and we can also shoot it without a modifier on it, which will be nice as well. So this light happens to be really unique for one reason and one reason alone. The lens is going through the middle of it. It's a ring, so it's absolutely even light coming out of this sucker straight at wherever you point your camera. So if I point it at the human face, I'm gonna be hitting light straight at the human face. Now we all know ring light's gonna create a little catch light, so you're gonna get a little circular catch light in there. And that'll change depending on distance and that kind of thing. We also want to get real close to see what the fall off's going to be like on this sucker. One thing about that you'll notice with the ring flash is that you will get a little bit of a strange shadowing coming off the subject. So when I shoot with a white background, it doesn't really matter because I'm going to strobe the background as well to make it white, and that's going to go away. But on this background, the way we have it, we're going to see that little shadow above the shoulders here. So the pictures up to this point we've been taking with the modeling lights. Now, ring flash doesn't have a modeling light, so we're actually gonna strobe this. You're not gonna get a visual on this as you have in the past, so we're gonna shoot it, we're gonna look at it in Lightroom, and we're gonna see what's going on. All right, Kahari's got his act together. Let's just take a shot and see how this looks. And the other thing I want you to notice about the ring flash is that I've got it attached to the camera. So for me to move, if I want to move the light closer, I'm moving the whole operation and changing my settings and everything because I'm moving the camera as well as the light at the same time. This is a relatively flat in terms of the light that we're using, and we're pretty far away from them. What if I change lenses, try and keep the same perspective and get in real tight? And look at that, I want to see what this light's going to do. So we're going to do that. We're going to take this lens off. We're going to pop another lens on, and we're just going to check it out. This is a 17 to 40 millimeter lens. And we're going to throw that in this sucker. And we're just going to see what we can do. We're going to shoot it at, let's try and make it the same perspective. Let's get right in, let's tuck right up in here on them. Okay, let's try this. Let's try this. Now just settle down in there. This is gonna hit you with a lot, I'm gonna blast you with a lot of light. Try and settle down. Guys, so see that? Because I'm so close to them, the light really isn't hitting the background anymore. We got the inverse square law in action here. I see a little bit of fall off here. So there's fall off on the background, but there's not enough fall off on the face to let me prove my point. Now I'm not gonna shoot them this wide really normally, but for this example, let's just fool around. Let's just blast him in the face with this thing and get real close. Let's just see what we got here. Okay, hold on, let's try this. How much abuse was that? He looks like a weird human. Look at the size of his cheeks are so weird. It's distorting your face. We just took off the reflector because I was getting weird light. It was too wide to be this close. This is a strange situation. We've got a 17 millimeter lens, which is distorting his face. But we're just doing it just to see if we can get the fall off. I don't suggest to anybody that they photograph this way, but for our purposes, we're just doing it just to see what kind of fall off we can get from the front of the face to the back of the face. So let me take a picture of this. All right. His hand looks bizarre. You don't look like that. Guys, don't do this to your people. He doesn't look like that. He's a mess. Guys, this isn't a phenomenal portrait by any means, but I just wanted to show it for the fall off. So look at the light on his nose and the forehead and how it falls up to the ear. You get all this fall off happening because we're this close with the ring flash. Lean back against that background. That's it. Okay, guys, so what we're doing is I want to look at that shadow, but I'm gonna shoot it on a bare bulb. When you buy a ring flash, it comes bare bulb. If you wanna add some of these fancy accessories, you can. I just wanna show you the difference between the three of them. We're gonna do the bare bulb, the white reflector, and the silver reflector. Let's try it. We're gonna have Kahari lean back to get the smallest shadow possible, and we're gonna take a shot. And this is, remember, bare bulb. What we got here, and what's really important is, we know we're gonna get this light that goes all around them, but if we lean them back against the backdrop, we're gonna really decrease the size of that shadow that we get, that strange shadow we get them right up, and it follows the outline of his body and head. Now we're gonna go to the white reflector. It's gonna make our light source a little bit bigger, so we're gonna see what that does. We're putting on the white reflector in a weird way. That's it, hold that. That's it. All right, guys, so what that white one did is it softened the light a little bit, but it made the shadow, the outline around him a little bit bigger. So here we go. So now I put the silver reflector on, which is gonna reflect a lot more light, so I'm sure it's gonna be hotter. So I'm gonna turn my power pack down a little bit. And we're gonna go for a shot. So you guys, so what I'm getting out of this is that it's very subtle. With the silver, you're getting a little more contrast. With the white, you're getting a little bit less, but it's negligible to me, the difference between the two. So I bought the silver way back when, and I've used it and I've liked it, so I'm gonna stick with the silver. I don't know why I would use the white. I wouldn't need two. So the silver works for me, and I actually like it without the reflector as well, so I'll use it that way as well. All right, so when I bring out the ring flash, it's usually because I'm going for a kind of look, a fashionier look or a funkier look. I don't think it's beautiful light. I think it's kind of strange and unusual, so I'll use it either. If I use it as a key light, it's usually because I want to give it that little weird look that gives it that really flat kind of poppy light. But if I want to bring it out and use it maybe just as a subtle fill, it's really nice because I can create those lines around the body with just a little bit of fill. It's kind of something that I like to fiddle with. So what everybody does is they use this as a key light and they blast it at their subject, and it's all well and good. But I want to show you a little variation. Most people don't use it as fill, but you get a nice fill out of this sucker. So we're going to set up a little shot for you where we introduce it and we'll show you how we can use a ring flash for fill. All right, guys, I'm very excited about this. So what we've done is we've recreated a shot that we did with Kahari earlier where we had this on the side of him and then we had the white foam core there. But instead of foam core, we're gonna use a ring flash for fill. All right, so I'm gonna take a shot of him without the ring flash going off just to show you what it looks like without the ring flash's fill. Fantastic. Okay, now you can see I've got the key light working here. I've got zero fill. I'm very dark on the right side of his face. So now we're going to introduce some fill. I'm going to turn the slave on this, and I've got it on the lowest power that the 2400 pack can possibly do, and we're just going to introduce a little light in there. Let's see what it does. Perfect. Now let's look at the density of those shadows and see if we open them up at all. So we opened them, right? Now let's go a little bit. We have really good exposure on his face. We like everything. Let's say that shadow density on the right side of his face is a little bit too dark for you. Let's just go up a stop on it. Let's go up one stop, all right? And let's take a shot. Okay, so now what I want you to realize is that's about as much fill as I would want. I'm also, if you notice, we're adding light to both sides of his face. We're not only adding light here, we're adding light here. So we're combining these two forces. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna drop the key light down, maybe a half stop, just to see. We're gonna go from 7 to 6.5 on this, just because we added light, and we're gonna take that shot and see how it looks. There we go. Now we have better exposure on his face, because you realize as you increase this light, you're going to add more light. You're combining these two lights together. You're going to have to control this light a little bit. So what I want you to notice here is that when we did this shot the first time without the ring flash and just the fill card, we had the foam core here and it was pushing light into the dark side. But it wasn't pushing light into the left side of his face. With the straight on ring flash, we're pushing light onto his face. So we're increasing light on both sides. We're always gonna have to adjust the lights because we're combining these two. With foam core is very soft, guys, so we're getting a soft fill with foam core. A ring flash is pretty hard light, so you're getting a hard fill with ring flash, so it's gonna give you a little different look there, as you notice. You know, I like fiddling with the two lights, but if I'm really gonna go for, my favorite shot was with a little bit less fill. I didn't feel I needed that much fill, so I'm gonna go back to that lighting setup and shoot just one more shot, just with a subtle, tiny fill, just so you get enough in there that you get some detail on the face, but you get a really nice light out of here. So let's try that right here. I like that shot a lot. I actually like the hard light fill. It gives it a little bit of depth in there. It's interesting. It's different. It's a lot different than a soft fill. Guys, this is such a cool trick. A lot of commercial photographers are using it. You stick a ring flash on there. It's really hard to tell that that's a ring flash fill, but you got that in your bag of tricks now. Pretty cool. All right, so we're gonna get into another modifier here that we like to put on lights to harness the light, and I like to use grids. So this is a 5-degree grid on here that you can see as it passes by the camera, right? Grid like that. So we've got 5-degree, we've got 10-degree, we've got 20-degree. We've used hard and soft light. Now we're gonna grid them to harness them and put them where we want. So I've got this little grid here. This is a 20-degree Pro Photo grid. I'm gonna slap it on this sucker and watch the way it controls the spill of this light. Look at that. I just harnessed that stuff right down into a beam like that. This is not changing the size of the light at all. It's just changing the throw of the light. It's absolutely containing the light and pointing it into this direction, and you can see where the spill ends here as compared to here where it's just going all over the place. So we're not changing the hardness or the softness of the light, we're just essentially changing the shape of the light. This is a 20-degree grid. Let's just try a couple others. Watch the spill at the 20-degree. Let's go for 10. Let's go for 10. So you know exactly what's happening. Here's a 10-degree grid. See how it got tighter? Watch this 5-degree grid. These things are really handy if you want to really tighten up this light. Here's the 5-degree. Look at that. Look at the 5-degree grid. Amazing. So we had 20, 10, 5. So I'm using these grids to keep the light hard. The light is still going to remain hard light, but I'm going to be able to pinpoint it exactly where I want it with a grid like that. Another way to pinpoint the light, this is a snoot from Pro Photo. So this narrows the beam of light down. Let's just look at the difference between a snoot and the 5-degree grid, or the other grids that you saw. Throw it on, and then we can open it up. We can change the light in the snoot depending on how far back we move it as well. You can see you get a little bit of a sharper edge with the snoot than you do with the grid. So you guys may be thinking, grids are only for hard light? Fear not. We got grids on a softbox right here, and I use it all the time. I love this because I really like to figure, I don't like light flying all over my studio. It's gonna harness it a little bit and keep it on track for me. All right, so let's throw this sucker on the light and see how the spill is with and without the grid. All right, so in the strip box, we got light generally pointed this direction. With the grid on it, look at the spill. It's still really soft, beautiful light, but the spill is kind of contained. Let's take this off and just take a look now. It just opened the light right back up. So with the grids, we're not changing the hardness or the softness on the light, but we're changing where it's going, where it's directed, the spill, if we want to hit areas of the face, we can really tighten it up with a tight grid, or we can tighten it up with a softbox with a grid on it where we only hit our subject and we get a lot more fall off onto the background, so our backgrounds can go a little bit darker as well. Let's try getting Kahari in here and see if we can light him up with some grids and see how we can make him look a little rough around the edges. All right, guys, so I just showed you how these grids work. Pretty cool, huh? Well, let's use Kahari here and put him on a human face and see what goes on. Let's fire him right up. So we put on the hard light, which you've seen before, and we hammer him with that. But watch, I've got a 5-degree grid here This is the smallest degree that we have, 5 degrees, and boom, look at that. Just lighting up his face. Let's take a shot of that and see what that looks like. All right, this is pretty cool, so we're getting something here, but let's fiddle with this light. All right, I've got the 5-degree grid on here, guys. We got a little spot of light, and we're just fooling around with Kahari and seeing what we can get here. Kahari, move this way a little bit. Hold that. Little tiny adjustments make huge differences with these. I could slice this light by them, too. Five-degreer. Just lighten the front of his, oh, that's cool. Hold that, let's see what that looks like. All right, guys, so I'm messing with Kahari. I like what this light's doing to his face. It's kind of making it look a little gritty and weird. Just kind of cool. And look, it's just shooting off to the side, right? So I'm just hitting that cheekbone and that nose. Now, I might throw in another grid. I might take my 10-degreer or a 20-degree grid. So I'm gonna go over here and I'm gonna use another grid to fill. Now I've got my original light set up the way it is. I got a little bit of my buddy Phil coming in, and I open up that side of the face a little bit with another grid. And I might even do it so that it doesn't hit. I'm just gonna open up this side. Let's just open it up a touch. Let's go right there. We'll open it up at 6. Let's see. And now we're getting somewhere. There you go, just opening up that face. All right, so I've got a kick on a grid here. Let's see what this looks like from the front. Oh my gosh, now we're talking. All right, now we're cutting up his face, something fierce. There we go. Hold that. Good. Now we're working in these grids. So I like grids as kickers too. I use them a lot. Kicker's a little bit hot. I'm going to even bring it down a little bit. So it's because you know I like subtlety in my kicks. So we're going to go down to 5 on this. Whoa, there we go. Now we got the subtlety of the kick that I needed. I could snoot this or grit it. All right, is that? Now, guys, we're going double kick. We got a snoot on one side now, and we're kicking. We got a grid on the other. We've got a 20-degree grid so we get some spread. Snoot giving us a little kick there. 2 kicks on both sides. 10 degrees here, 5 degrees there to create that little highlight around the eye. I like the darkness, I like the detail in the shadows. I think for a moody, cool shot like this, that's kind of funky, I wanted that 5 degree to make sure it punched out. These suckers get hot, but what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the grid off and we're gonna shoot it and we're gonna look at the difference with the grids off. I mean, you can see that ridiculously. This is just a totally different ball game. What we have, we took the grids off and we lit it like this. I wouldn't necessarily light like this, but you know, it's different. It's mood, it's whatever. We're experimenting with our lighting in ways to create interesting things. You should be always experimenting with your lighting. So I'm not getting much light into his eyes on either shot, but with the moody one, it kind of looks interesting with the grids. And the other one's okay too. It's an interesting light. It doesn't matter which shot you like more that I took a Kahari. We were just messing around, but the key is that it's different. You put a modifier on it, completely changes the shot altogether. You've got totally different shots here. This kind of light and doing the grids and stuff is something that I use. I use grids all the time. But I'm not necessarily using this kind of moodiness. But let's say you want to do an editorial or you're doing something where you need somebody that looks a little grittier, a little moodier, a little stranger. It's a great way to control light and have some fun with it at the same time. Later on in the tutorial, we're gonna throw every element together, hard light, soft light, grids, softboxes, you name it, to create images that are really cool. Hey guys, what do you know what this is? This looks like some sort of art project my daughter did for Christmas, but what it actually is we're calling a cookie, and you're gonna see it in action. All right guys, so we've gone over a ton of modifiers, and the last thing I wanna go over are gobos, flags, and cookies. We're gonna just fiddle around with some lighting techniques that are fun, and you may get some great use out of these. So gobos are simply anything that goes between the light source and your subject. Had I had a subject here. Simplest one's a flag. I could use this. It's a black piece of foam core. I could use it as a flag. I could create any kind of flagging off of this light on my subject using a board like this. I want to show you something. So watch. When I bring this gobo close, or flag as we call it, close to the light, I'll put it on half the light. You can see it's really soft, but it does affect the light. But watch as I get closer to the background. Watch the line of the board start to get sharper, 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 sharper. And then when it gets real close, it's real sharp. We're gonna use this technique to get the flag closer or further away to completely change the look of the shadow. Whether we want a sharper shadow or a softer shadow will all be determined by the amount of distance from the subject. All right, so I've got a hard light over here, I've got a soft light over here. We've seen how this works with the hard light to get the hard edge when we get closer. I'm gonna shut this one off, and we're just gonna look at the soft light. It works a lot better with the hard light. Watch the shadow. Way softer than before because of the softness of the light. Way softer. So let's talk about cookies. Cookies are essentially flags with holes in them that we're gonna shoot through. So we're gonna cut off this light. We're gonna turn this one back on. All right, so I found a little reflective little piece of cardboard in the studio, and we made this. We cut a bunch of triangles out of this sucker. Look at what we did. We look at the shapes. Again, same principle. Closer you are, sharper it's gonna be. Further away, softer it's gonna be. So you can use this. Imagine putting this against somebody's face. You can create all sorts of interesting shadows on somebody's face. Or think about the background. We had a white background, now we have some sort of mosaic going on back there. Here's another one that's got some weird shapes in it that we made. We just cut these out. Look at this. I mean, you could do all sorts of stuff with this action. All right, so let's get one of our models and see what we can do with this stuff. So, guys, this is what we're doing. We are gonna shoot a little flag situation. We're gonna shoot a beam of light on her face. We're gonna use the hard light, point it at her, and we're gonna put a flag in between and create a little of a slit of light over her face, and we're gonna see what it looks like and see if it looks cool, and we're messing around. So check this out. All right, so I'm setting on my fill light on this shot. So we've got basic exposure on this shot. So we're barely filling in the face. We're actually using this as fill because the light that's gonna be the key light is gonna be the one that's flagged off and create that highlight of a little slit across her face. So let's try it. I'm gonna turn on my key light. All right, so I'm setting this light up, and I'm gonna watch the shadow on her nose. Look straight in the camera, Cersei. Chin down. Yeah, and I wanna make sure that that's a nice light across her face. So I'm gonna bring this a little bit. I think I'm gonna go about here. It's a little bit too far to the side for me, so I'm gonna bring it a little bit more like this, and I'm gonna go right about there. I think I like that. So guys, we got a fill and a hard light here, and I'm just gonna take this exposure, see what it looks like. So it's super hot. That fill is really coming in very hot. So I'm gonna just adjust that a little bit because I want that. I'm gonna go down just a little bit, down a stop. Just to see if I can get, I want that fill working in for me. Right about there. So guys, I can manipulate Cersei's face to decrease the shadow around her nose, and when I get the nose more towards the key light. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna flag off the key light to create a little bit of a shape around her face. And it's not gonna change our exposure at all. We're keeping that fill going, and we're gonna see what this looks like. So I set this up. I've got two little boards here. I cut a board in half, a little piece of foam core black, threw it up on this stand, created a slit. I can vary the size of the slit by doing this, and it's a very simple setup that will just move in and create these shadows across her face. So I want the lines pretty harsh. So what I'm doing is I'm just gonna create from her nose to just above her eye a little slit like that. Let me see what that looks like. So I'm varying this slit, right guys? Size of it. Sharpness, the sharper, it's gonna be sharper if I get it closer to her. So I want it super sharp. So I just want it just out of my frame. I'm gonna try this. Beautiful, Cersei. That's it. Don't look so miserable. Come on. Beautiful. That's it. I'm making her work now. She's got to think, oh, that's kind of, I like that. That's cool. There we go. Now, I can make her face go a little bit darker by adjusting fill. Watch fill. Let's bring fill down. Let's bring fill down all the way to 4. Keep the exposure exactly the same. And now we're just going darker on her face and body, and we're just going to bring it in tighter so that there's more attention on that highlight. There you go. So you could do something hot, you play with it and see what they do. I mean, this isn't something that I'll use on a daily basis, but you could fiddle with this type of move. The beautiful model and beautiful mouth, beautiful jawline. Try different stuff. Chin down a little bit. Hold that, try that right there. Good, go nose this way a little bit. Look through the slit. Good, hit your hair like this. Stay tilted like that. Chin down a little bit, good. Chin down a little bit more. There you go, beautiful. Now look through the slit on that angle. Hold that, good. Okay, we've got a basic exposure on this. Cersei's got a good look. I like the way it's jetting across her face. I want to liven up the background back there, so I'm going to blast light on it with another head, and in between the head and the background, I'm going to throw a cookie, and we're going to see what that looks like. I'm just going to take a shot with, the light on the background without the cookie. Watch this. We're just doing one light strewn across the background. All right, so we just threw a light across the background, which just looks kind of blah to me. Let's throw a cookie in there and see how that looks. All right, here we go. Let's shoot this. Let's try this shot. Now let's see what that cookie did to give us, if it gave us anything interesting, any texture, anything going on in the background. Let's check it out. All right, so guys, now we've got a completely different look than what we had before. It's getting a little bit ominous and kind of funky and kind of cool. So you can adjust that however you want, but it just gives your background something strange going on. It looks kind of interesting. You got a basic introduction to gobos and blocking light and creating interesting things on the face. And, you know, we're going to get more into it as we go, but here you have it. Guys, so now we're to a section that really holds a strong place in my heart. I've been shooting Kino flows. It created the signature look for me. I've been shooting for 10 years. I love them. If I didn't put them in this DVD, people would be freaking out. So here they are, guys, Kino flow lighting. You've seen that we've been shooting a lot with the modeling lights during this tutorial, and then we've blown the strobe a couple times and done that. We did it with the ring flash, and we did it with the natural sunlight stuff. But with this, I can actually mix strobe in with the daylight and get the same color temperature, which is really nice to mix. And I mix light all the time. I mix the strobe with the constant light, and I love it. So I talk a lot, I direct a lot while I'm shooting. I don't like strobe going off this close to my subject's face every time I'm talking, because I'm going for these little nuances in expression. And if they're in there and it's just constant light, it doesn't matter what's going on between us. We can talk away. If a strobe has to go off and recycle, I've got to think about it, I've got to stop, I've got to pause. They're gonna have a flash go off in their eyes. I'd rather have constant light when I'm doing this kind of work. Guys, I'm huge. I love tiny pupils because of real estate in the eye. If you got somebody with blue eyes and their pupil's big because you're blowing off a strobe and the modeling light's not powerful enough to constrict that pupil, you're wasting real estate in their eyeballs. So with the Kinos, they're blasting. Pupils are always small in my work. So I built this out as a square, and I can shoot right through it. So I can adjust these lights however I want. I've got Cersei in there, and she's standing in there a little bit behind the lights, and there's a pretty wide opening. I usually, when I'm doing headshots, I like to get the lights as close as possible to them. So I might tighten up this square a little bit for us to shoot. But it's nice to have a lighting apparatus that I can shoot through, so that's why I went with the square. One of the things about Kinos is they're really hard to travel with. I like traveling, when I go on the road and I travel, I use Profoto D1s and I put strip boxes on them and I create the same setup with those. So here's my Kino Flow setup, which I really love this shot. It's simple, it's clean. I like shadowless lighting, beauty lighting on women, and this is gorgeous to me. This is just what it's all about. Now, if she comes forward and comes in front of my light convergence, hold that. Look at the difference in this shot between this shot and that shot. So we're getting shadowing in the eyes. We're getting all sorts of weird stuff going on here. So I'm not getting the light in the eyes the way that I wanted. The eyes are falling into shadow, whereas before I had light on her face. Now I got weird stuff going on. If she goes too far back, it's gonna flatten the light. Remember the inverse square law. We want a little bit of fall off. In my work, I like it to be brighter on the front of the face and fall off just a touch. So I want her as close to the lights as possible without being too close, because then you start to get weird shadowing. So she's right about where I need her. I think I need her a little closer and a little bit this way. Go center it, step, and now go back an inch. That's better. That's really nice light. Hold that right there. Chin down a little bit for me. Beautiful. Beautiful. All right, so if she gets too far back from the light, I start to lose a little bit of pop on her and she'll flatten out a little bit. Now, we've moved Cersei way back from the light, and throughout this whole tutorial, we've been talking a lot about light fall off. When she's this far from the lights, it's like a big softbox now, just all this light coming at her. You can see from the shadow around her what's going on. And the exposure on her nose is pretty much the same as on her ear, but if I move her closer, what's gonna happen? We're gonna get that fall off. We're gonna get a brighter nose and a fall off over the ear. Right now, Cersei's about 10 feet off the lights. Let's bring her forward and get her 2 feet away and watch the difference of the light on her face. Obviously, the exposure is gonna change, but we also get the quality of light changing. Now, I definitely see a difference in the exposure difference from her nose to her ear. Much darker ear than her nose at this stage of the game. I don't think that one is any better than the other necessarily from a photographic standpoint, but in terms of taste, I like there to be a lot of fall off in my work. So I like people jammed really close to the lights. You guys, I just want to show you what these fills are doing and everything. So I'm going to start turning bulbs off. I'm going to just leave the left side of the light on and I'm going to turn off the rest. And Cersei, don't move, just stay. So I want you to see exactly what the light is doing. So here's what this one light is doing. I'll leave the exposure the same and I'll shoot it. Now the exposure is actually gonna change because we're adding light. So I'm gonna expose this properly and we're gonna adjust our exposure as we get going. So if I expose this properly, let's try right here. This is about where I wanna be. Now, I've got just one light on her. Now I want to show you when I put the right-hand side light on, it's gonna fill everything that you see that's in shadow in the picture now, and it's also gonna increase the exposure a little bit because we're adding light to both sides of the face. I'm doubling the light, so we're gonna be adding a stop here. So let's bring it up a stop. And try this. So now you have pretty nice, flat, even light. So this is essentially similar to when we had those two soft boxes side by side and using it as a clamshell. So let's go for the top and bottom. Let me just add the top first. And let's take a shot of this. So when we added the top light, you can see we're lighting in here. We're lighting the cheeks. We're adding the laugh lines here are getting filled a little bit. And then the last light we just have to do is add that fill from the bottom to wash the face up so we lose all the shadows. That's the really shadows. So let's try that. And now we have more light, so I'm gonna stop down a touch. And now look at what we've done. Amazing. We've just absolutely taken every shadow and just wiped it off her face. So there is a variation that I do on this. If you look, we're filling every shadow in this square setup, which I really like for a lot of different reasons. But what I've been doing lately is sometimes I like to get a little stronger jawline on women, and I favor the left side of people's faces. So I started doing a triangle where I favor the left-hand light. So we're gonna do that now, and I'm gonna show you what it's all about. So we're gonna take out the top light, we're gonna keep the bottom light in there, and I'm just gonna flip this other Kino Flow and put it in as a triangle, and it's gonna give me a little bit more shadowing on the face than I have now. Now, like I did before, I like these lights to be hit. I like to shoot the light in the frame. I'm not worried about that at all. I'm also favoring the left side of her face, but I'll shoot her straight on, which is fine. So Cersei, just step a little bit this way. So I need her in the center of this triangle. I took a light out of there, so I'm opening up a little bit, and I'm also angling this light. I usually angle these a little bit like this, so it's more of a triangle. So I'm jamming the light. I'm watching where that light convergence is falling. I don't want her too far ahead of this, but I want to compare it to the 4-light setup and see what I like better. Okay, let's try that. I just want to get a little bit more detail around the jawline. I think the triangle gives you a subtle hint of contrast around the contours of the jaw, and that's why I do the triangle as opposed to the square. All right, so guys, this is what I'm doing. I'm setting up the strobes in the background. What I really like to do is make sure they're at lowest power, and then I build it up. So the lowest this will go, this is a 500, D1 500 Air. Lowest it'll go is 4.0, so I'm setting it up at 4.0. I'm setting it on the model's shoulder height. So Cersei's shoulder is about here, and that's where I usually like it. I'm also pointing at the background. So if there was a point behind her that was straight behind her, I point the lights a little bit off. So I wouldn't point it straight at the background. I want this one to go a little bit right of center, and this one to go a little bit left of center. I always use 2 lights because I find it a lot more even than doing 1. You could do 1 in the center behind her, and that would work fine, but I always like to have 2. Usually I have 2, I have a studio, I got to set up, but if you're down a light, you're okay with just 1. So the background is white, so we're using a white background and we're making it gray. This is my favorite trick for people that aren't photographers. When they come in the studio, they see me, they're like, how'd you change the background color? I was like, it's my trick. I love that. So I use it all the time because I like gray. But now I want to vary the gray. Maybe I want a lighter gray, maybe I want to go white. I'm going to start with the strobes on the lowest power. I'm going to beef them up as we go. So right now they're at 4.0. Let me take a shot. Good. So now we're mixing light. We're getting a little bit more light in there, and now we've got a nice soft gray. Let's say I want to go up a stop. I want to go up slowly. I know that if I go up a stop, I'm going to get closer to white. I probably won't approach white. I don't want to go beyond what's white. As soon as it's white, I'm done. Let's try it at 5.0. 1 stop brighter on the background, and then we can bring it up. Now we still have gray back there. I can see it. I'm going to go a half a stop brighter. So I'm going to hit this 5 times, and we're gonna get it at 5.5, which now I hope this will get me to white. I might have to go to 6.0. Let's see. Now I'm starting to see that it's white. I think I can just punch it a little bit more. There's still a little bit of gray there. I'm gonna go up another half stop, and I'm gonna be happy at 6.0 probably. And I'm done. I don't want to go above 6.0 because I'm going to get flare. I see this problem all the time with you guys. So you go beyond that, you just blast the bat. Watch when I go above 6.0. I'm going to go to 8 just to prove my point. Watch this. Hold this. I'm blasting light all over the room now, and I've got Cersei getting hit with all sorts of light from behind that just smokes around her. Now, if you want that effect, go for it. I think it's pretty and it's interesting, and introducing flare is a totally different ball of wax. But for my commercial headshots, I don't want that kind of flare. Maybe for a fashion or editorial thing you could do it, but I want to get something where there's no flare. So I know 6.0 is where I want to be. So guys, I'm not a big fan of totally blowing light all over the place and blowing out the background. I want to have control over that. I might introduce it with a kicker light instead of something like this, or I might just give it a subtle kick. I'm back at 6, I'm going to just bring it up a half stop to see if I can get that little bit of wrap around the cheek, but I'm not going to get too much craziness going on in the hair. And we go a little bit past white. So that's really subtle. Let's try going up another half stop. We'll go to 7.0. Hold that. Look here now. Straight on, straight, straight. Good. Now you can see it on the cheek. So there it is, wrapping around the cheek really nicely. Guys, I've been shooting this setup for years. It's my favorite thing. I did it in 2004. I barely changed it, if at all. I haven't really changed it since. It is my beauty light. So what I do is I mix it up for guys. I like guys to be a little chiseled, you know? So I want to wrap that light around them differently. So we're going to bring Kahari in. We're going to shoot him with this light. We're going to show you. And then I'm going to show you how I mix it up a little bit with guys. Okay, so I got Kahari in there. Now, if you look at him, I can't shoot him because the light's in the way. I wanted to describe how I set my lights up. So the center of my light, I like at the ear. Right about here in the ear. I put the center of the light on the ear. So I'm going to raise these lights up so that the center of them are right on his ear. Right? This one I'm just going to raise up to get it out of the frame. He's a little bit ahead of my light convergence, so I'm just going to step him back a smidge. I've got these angled a little bit. I can angle them or turn them in a little bit. I usually like them angled and turned in a touch. This is simply, this became women's beauty lighting for me just because that's what I called it, but I shot guys like this for years till I started to shadow them up. I mean, I shot this, I didn't start doing the shadows and stuff till I started to discover and play with light. So I just raised my whole operation up, all right? If he was tiny, I'd have to bring it all down. You want the center of the light to be hitting, you want the lights all to converge at the same space, which is at the front of his face. So if I kept them too low, I'd be uplighting him. I couldn't even get the shot in because the lights would be in the way. But now I've raised him up. Let's take a shot. Kari, right here. That's it. Hold it steady in there. That's it. Perfect. I can work with that. There he is. All right, now, really nice light. Nothing wrong with it. Looks good on him, right? Pretty good light. Jam your chin out. Stop fidgeting around in there. Settle down. Perfect. There we go. Nice light. I'm not jumping. I mean, I like it. He's fine. But he's got amazing features that I can cut into, and I can mix up the shape of his face and give him something interesting. So I'm going to show you what I do with men's lighting with the Kinos. First things first, we get this bottom light comes out. All right. If you do a 4-light setup with Kinos, you can go top light becomes my kicker. So I now can get this light out of here, and I'm going to put it behind him, and I'm going to use it as a little kick. Kicking, you want to watch the level of the kick. I usually like the kick right in line with the shoulder, and then I'm going to watch where the shadow goes from the shoulder and the collar on the kick. So I'll be watching that. And also the power of the kicker. Remember, I've told you before, you need less kick with darker skin. So, because the kick becomes a lot stronger. So this light, I'm going to go straight up, and I'm going to bring it in tight on him. And I'm going to keep that level right on the ear. And then the other light, this is my buddy. This is my buddy Phil, right? So Phil needs to be less because I'm just using him as Phil. So I'm going to turn Phil off completely. But I'm also, I want you to realize, I'm going to turn Phil completely away from Kahari because what's going to happen? I'm strobing the background. If I keep that light there, it's going to get a bounce and it's going to give me Phil. So I'm going to show you that too. I use the light sometimes without it on to get my Phil. So let's see how Kahari does here. Hold that, that'll work. Let's settle down in there. Look at the difference in the light. Now, I still think I'm getting too much flare from the background. So now I got Kahari in there. I decided to separate them. I usually use V-flats next to my subjects, and I like them black because it's gonna absorb light. All right, I'm gonna block the strobe, and I'm gonna get clean light off of my key light, and I'm gonna be able to create more shadows in the cheek than I would have if that wasn't there. I've also got the kicker coming in from the back, so it skirts right around the V-flat to create the kick. And it looks like a pretty strong kick to me, so I might lower it, but for now, let's take a shot, and let's compare that to what we had before we put the V-flats up. Chin down a little bit, that's it, I can work with that, hold that. Now we have much darker density in the shadow area than the shot without the V-flat. I want you to realize when you're blowing strobes around the room, I've got a white curtain here blocking windows, I've got a white ceiling. I want to make sure I add black around my subject in order to get the shadow density where I want it. Now I'm looking at that kick and it's a little heavy. I'm going to lighten that kick up a little bit. All we're going to do is I'm going to turn a couple bulbs off, and now I got a much softer kick. Watch this. Squinch those eyes. What are you doing? There you go. You know about squinching, right?
Of course.
Stop fooling around. So we did a little bit less on the kicker light, and it just softened that kick. So it's really soft. He's got a really heavy cheekbone that sticks out by his ear, which is amazing, and it shapes his face, and it makes him a ton of money because he gets paid for the way he looks. And I'm shaping that with the kicker light. I'm changing the shape of his face with the kicker light to accentuate that, and I can move him around accordingly. Now I want to bring in my buddy Phil, all right? So I'm going to first bring him in without any light on. Watch this. I want you to see the difference. And I'm just going to leave Phil right there. I'm not even going to turn him on. Just going to let him mind his own business right there. So guys, this is exactly what we did before with the strip box when we didn't even turn it on. Anytime that you have white near subjects, it's going to act like a fill card, so you got to be careful. So I'm looking at him, and I already see that I opened up that shadow. So when I shoot this, watch, we'll open up that shadow quite a bit. Let's take a shot. He's got his squinch on, we're ready to go. Open it up just a touch. Now we're going to take it to another level. We're going to start to bring bulbs back in on Phil, and we're starting from the front bulb because we want the furthest bulb forward because it's going to hit most of his face. If I start with this bulb, I'm shooting it light more towards the side. I want the light going straight back at him, not coming from behind. So I always go with the bulb closest to the camera. I turn that one on first, and then I go down from there. So let's see what this, now we got some fill from the light. We not only have a bounce off the light, but we have an extra bulb on. And we're going to start to slowly fill. Remember, my work's all about subtlety, so I like to slowly fill that shadow. With somebody like him now, there's a lot more fill in that because the light's on. We turn that light on. We also get a catch light a little bit from the fill light. Now, let's say that's a little bit, that's a lot for me. Watch this. I can't go any lower on the power here, but I can bring fill back a little bit. All right, so here is the inverse square law in action, guys. I'm moving it about a foot from where it was, and let's watch what it does for the fill. Now it's where, now I like that transition and then the subtlety in the blacks and the shadows, and then it opens up that, I like the kick on them too. Really nice. I got two bulbs on the kicker. Let's go one down on the kicker, and we'll go one bulb on the kick. Now it's a real tiny little kick, and I'm going to bring fill back a little bit more. We're going to go right about there. Let's try this. This is real subtle what we're doing here, guys. Now, I want to show you something else. I want to start to create a little bit more shadows underneath these cheekbones and this amazing face that this dude has. This is amazing. Like, this area is money. This guy's got it, you know, he's got the cheekbone that comes out like this, you know, he's all about it. So what I want to do is I want to take the light, I want you to watch. I'm going to tilt the light, and I want to really sculpt the face. I want to make my shadow fall right here, and I'm going to get my light in the frame again because you know I like that. And I'm going to sculpt the face with the light. So watch the face. Watch Watch where I'm putting the light. See how I'm opening it up, opening it up, opening it up. I'm looking right here. I'm gonna stop when the light's right there so that the cheek really has fall off. And in order to get the fall off really serious, we know this, we're gonna get the light really close. So now, look at this action in here. Amazing. Now, as long as I don't have that light in the frame, we're gonna be in business. I might raise it just a touch to get it out of frame. Let's see if we can get that sucker out of frame. Easy to retouch. Remember, I always make my retoucher do more work than necessary. Hold that. I put more light on the cheek, right? And then I keep the shadow in here. Big difference, guys. I love that. I want you to bring your forehead a little bit towards the camera. Bring that, yeah, like that. Hold that. Hold that, and then go nose a little bit this way. I'm gonna institute a little bit more shadow depth by taking away fill completely. Let's just take fill away. Give me a little brow pressure. Yeah, subtle brow pressure would be nice here. All right, so I took fill out, and I'm really going for that shadow density in that area of the cheekbone down here, which I'm getting. Yeah, so I love this area of the face in here on guys. This is what I'm going for with bringing that kicker and bringing that fill and everything. This is about where I'd be. Kari, turn your body this way a little bit. Now go nose back that way. Drop your shoulder. Drop your shoulder. Turn nose back to hand back. Tilt the head this way. Nose this way. Hold that. I'm watching, when I move him, sometimes, like I said, with the sun, you're not gonna move it. You're gonna move your model to the sun. A lot of times I'll set up the lights and I'll move the model to the light. So drop your front shoulder this way. Drop it down, lean this way. There you go, good. Tilt the head this way a little bit, and then nose this way. I'm just trying to hold that right there. I'm just trying to bring a little kick. I'm gonna bring a little kick to the cheek I'm gonna open up that kick a little bit more. Hold that right there. Squint your eyes or something, do something with them. There you go, good. There you go. So, I'm opening up the cheek with the kicker by tilting him. But I untilt him a little bit with the camera. So see how I highlighted his goods? Cheekbone and jawline are his money. So I just highlighted it by tilting him, getting that light where I wanted it. And instead of going in and moving the light, I moved him. Since I have a clean background, I untilted the camera to tilt him a little bit. Now I could do that with let's try it with the shoulders this way. Turn the shoulders back to me. Now tilt the head, tilt the body this way. Tilt your shoulders more. Now bring your head up like this. Hold that head this way. Hold that. Now look at him. He's tilted, right? Watch this. This is one of my tricks. Tricks of the trade. Now just step this way. Now I've got that's it. Hold that right there. I've got the kick riding up now his cheek because I tilted him. But watch, I untilted him with the camera, and now I changed the light on his face. I took the kicker. He looks like he's not tilted at all, but you saw him. He's tilted, right? And I took the kicker and I washed it up his cheek just because I tilted him. So I opened up this area with that move on the kicker. Very nice. Feels weird, right?
It does.
Yeah. Did you see the shot?
Not yet.
Looks cool. Hold that. Tilt the head this way. Hold that right there. Very nice. Hold that. Now I've got the axis of his shoulders, same plane as the camera. So he will appear like he's standing like this, basically, even though he's like this. All right, so now, guys, what I want to do is I want to get that white background. I want to start to bring it back down to gray. So we're going to go down to 5 on these. We're just going to take the background down a stop. Very subtle, right? So now we're at 5. Let's go to 4. And this is going to be a little bit more gray than what we had. We could take this off and not blow the strobe, and we're gonna get a really nice gray. Or if we wanna go somewhere in between the gray that we're about to get without the strobe and this one, we'll start to move the lights back because that's as low power as they'll go. So let's try this. Now the difference between the strobe, the gray without the strobe, and the gray with the strobe is huge. So I would start moving my lights back potentially if I wanted something in the middle.